Golden State Media Concepts bring you Book Review Podcast, a haven for bookworms of all ages and the widest genres, from mystery to memoirs, romance to comedy, fantasy to sci-fi. If you love to read, this is the podcast for you. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Book Review Podcast.
So excited for today's episode because today I will be speaking with author Marianne Delacourt, who is the author of, among other things, the Tara Sharp series. The Tara Sharp series is currently a series of 3 books with a 4th one due out soon, and we'll be talking mostly about her new book, Too Sharp. That is the 3rd book in this series, and let me give you just a little bit of background on that book. According to the Tara Sharp website, Book 3 is amateur sleuth and reluctant aura reader Tara Sharp returns in a new adventure. This time she's looking after a difficult rock star in Bris Vegas, and it's not just him or his crazy fans she's got to look out for. There's danger and intrigue aplenty when you're playing with the shark of the music business. Tara Sharp is back again in this frightening foray into the music industry. Things are a bit hot for Tara Sharp in Perth, so she jumps at the chance to leave town when a music promoter offers her a gig looking after a difficult rock star who's performing in Brisbane. It's not Tara's usual line of work, but the money is good and she's a sucker for a backstage pass. Respite from her mother, with all her not-so-subtle hints about eligible young men and suitable jobs, is also a plus, as is the time and distance to resolve her mixed-up feelings about the men in her life. Arriving in Bris Vegas, Tara finds her hands full dealing with the bizarre habits of the artist, not to mention his crazy fans. She soon discovers that the music industry is more cutthroat than she could possibly have imagined, and that the promoter who hired her is in over his head. In her quest to level the playing field, Tara discovers that it can get very dangerous messing with the big boys. So again, that is a description of the 3rd book in the Tara Sharp series. That book is called Too Sharp. If you're interested in the rest of the books, the first one is called Sharp Shooter. The second one is called Sharp Turn. And there's a 4th book coming out sometime in the nearish future called Sharp Edge. I really loved this book, and I love the series as a whole. This book is, as I said, as the description said, a little bit different from the other 2 because instead of being in Perth, Tara is in Brisbane. So a little bit of background on the books as a whole, the series as a whole. Tara Sharp is Australian. She lives in Perth. I'm going to give you full disclosure and say I know very little about Australia, so I don't really know the geography as to where Perth is in relation to Brisbane. I'm going to be looking at a map here soon to find those things out. So she grew up in Perth, and the interesting thing about Tara is that she can read auras. She can see people's auras, and she can tell what's going on with people by the color of their auras. She can also feel intensity of emotions. So when she talks to people, she can read their auras. She can sense when they're lying, when they're stressed, when they're really happy, when they're calm, etc., by the color of their aura. So that's a really interesting aspect of these books. It gives them a little bit of a twist from your regular crime novels. The books are funny, they are lighthearted, but they're also full of warmth and really great relationships that are developing. When we first meet Tara in the 1st book, she knows that she has this ability, but it makes her feel like she's crazy. And so at the advice of her therapist, she's given the name of someone who can help her to learn how to use her abilities. She would like to just pretend or just make them go away, but since that's not possible, she goes to meet with this person who can then help her train and to use those abilities and to actually use them in her life to be a job. So eventually she becomes a private investigator. And that's where we see her in this 3rd book, where she is being hired to go to Brisbane and help this music promoter find out what's going on in his life because there's all sorts of intrigue and mystery, as well as to look after this American rap star, Slim Sledge. So I like that it's not your average crime novel because it does have this paranormal element to it. The way that Ms. Delacourt writes is that it just seems natural. It doesn't seem weird. It doesn't seem like it draws you out of the story. It just seems like, yes, this character happens to read auras. And that's how she is able to do so well in the work that she does. She has she takes a lot of risks. She's very impulsive, and as a character, she's very likable. She's got some men issues. You heard that little snippet that her mom is trying to get her interested in suitable young men. So she's far from perfect, which is the way I like my characters. She's quirky, she's funny, and she's surrounded by a cast of other characters who are just as quirky and funny and interesting as she is, whether or not they can read people's auras. So, as I said, that is a brief overview of the books for you. And right now we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will be speaking with author Marianne Delacourt. So stay tuned, and I will be right back.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Sharp series by author Marianne Delacourt, and I am so excited that Marianne is available via Skype today to speak with us from Australia, where she lives in Brisbane. And so without further ado, we are going to start with that interview. Hi Marianne, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Hi Sarah, I'm really well, and thank you very much for having me.
Great. So we're just going to jump right in. Would you like to tell my listeners a little bit about you?
Well, I'm an Australian. I live in Queensland, in the city of Brisbane, which is they describe as beautiful one day, perfect the next. I've been writing novels for about 15 years now, and in that time I've published 17 novels, of which some are the Tara Sharp series that I think we're going to talk about today.
Yes, we are. And I really, really enjoy them. I like Tara as a character. She's fun. What made you come up with the idea for Tara? Because she has some interesting abilities.
It was actually a combination of things. I had been writing, I write a lot of science fiction, and I published quite a few novels for adult science fiction at that point, and I just finished this really big space opera called The Sentience of Orion, and it's taken 5 years out of my life and a lot of research, and because I don't have a science background. So I was just looking for a change, I think, and something set in the contemporary world rather than the far future. So that kind of started me thinking about what I'd like to write. I'm a big crime reader. I love crime. And that combined with the fact that I had for a long time a really big fear of flying, and the only books that would engage me when I was on a flight somewhere were Janet Ivanovich's Stephanie Plum series.
Oh, okay. I love Stephanie Plum.
Yeah. And so I suppose I just started thinking that I'd love to write something in that genre, that comic crime genre. And so, those two things came together. I was looking for the change, and I started fiddling around with some ideas, and the character of Tara herself actually came kind of fully formed. she kind of stepped onto the page and announced herself.
That's great. So I definitely, when I was reading, I definitely felt that connection with Janet Ivanovich, kind of the similar genre. But where yours differs is that your main character, Tara, is, would you call her psychic? Or she's not really psychic, but she can see people's auras. And
Yeah, she's not really psychic. Sometimes I use that word just so people kind of understand. It's quite hard to explain. She perceives auras around people, and she has extra sensitivity to body language. But so those two combined things have really kind of messed up her life at the point where we meet her. And those ideas of the fact that she can see auras and that came to me just because I've always had an interest in that area. And I do remember as a high schooler, during our recess times, we used to sort of stand each other up against white doors and see if we could see each other's auras. And it just came back to me when I started thinking about writing this series.
did you ever have any luck seeing someone else's aura?
Well, I'm sure I remember at the time thinking that I did. Whether I did or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, I do think there's that kind of bleed of colour that you get if you stare at a person on a stark against a stark background, whatever that may be. But it was once I started researching it, there is actually quite a lot of literature out there about people that read or believe in auras and see auras and that kind of thing. So.
Okay, that was actually going to be my next question, was what kind of research did you do about Tara's ability and being able to see auras?
Well, there's of course an awful lot about body language or paralanguage, and some of the research has been discredited, but I think the reality is we don't really know. Mm-hmm. So I learned about micro expressions and the importance of proximity and what that says, how close you are to a person. And with auras, most of the literature out there tends to be from the New Age sphere, but I actually, saw a couple of websites where they had identified what colours meant. And what I am writing fiction, so what I did is I took some of the ideas that I read about and created my own colour chart. So, and then of course I had to keep a very detailed catalogue of it because a lot of the auras around people she sees are mixed auras and they have flashes in them or, speckles in them or things like that. So I've had to keep a really detailed catalogue so that I didn't get mixed up with who was what colour.
I would imagine, because you do go into fairly good detail, and I like that you explain, which color means what and what that means to Tara.
Yep.
So, what's next for Tara? You've written 3 books, and this last book, I'm not going to give anything away, but ended with a little bit of a question mark.
Yes. Look, it's, I suppose, there's one more book written at the moment. The new book is book 4, and it'll be called Sharp Edge, and nobody's seen any excerpts from that at this stage. It's brand new, so that'll be out in the next couple of months. I suppose what I've tried to do with the series is the character, when you meet her, is kind of in disarray. Her life is not on track, and she's got this gift that she hates, that she can't, kind of manage, and it's ruining her life. And so what we see slowly over the series is her, growing and developing and learning to harness this gift. And along the way, the secondary characters that are in her life are also, when we meet them, they're all at a loss. So it's the journey of these people as they slowly get their life together. Because what I didn't want was to write a series where the character didn't change. I very much wanted Tara to move from a place of kind of relative disempowerment to somewhere where, she knows herself and understands herself and makes better choices, I guess. That doesn't mean that along the way there aren't a lot of hiccups, and she's a spontaneous person and she gets herself into lots of scrapes. So I'm not sure exactly where the series will end at this stage, but book 4 is not far away. So
I'm excited. Do you have a number in mind for how far you'd like the series to go? How many books you'd like?
Honestly, I'm not sure. It's certainly not something I can see going for 20 books. I feel like, maybe 10 if the series went really well. I don't have an end arc in mind just yet, but I don't believe, there is a bit of a love triangle in it, plus there are other men in her life, and I feel like it's only fair to the readers that they get resolution at some stage. So that's something I feel quite strongly about. I don't think that you can draw these things out for too long without them losing some of their impact. So, yeah, look, maybe 10, maybe it'll finish at 6. I'm really not sure yet.
Okay. Is there anything autobiographical about Tara or in the series?
I don't know if I should answer that.
Well, you can answer it to whatever extent you feel comfortable. There is the fear of flying in this latest book. There is a character who has a fear of flying. So
yeah. Look, definitely there are. Probably of all the characters I've written, there are. She's most closely aligned to my character. But there are also lots of things about her that are different. I mean, she's way bigger risk taker than I am. I'm a bit of a wuss. So maybe I can live vicariously through her and let her take all the risks that I don't. She's a little more spontaneous. But there's elements of her life, like, I'm very involved in basketball. I love the sport and my whole family's involved in it, so it's something that I know a lot about. So there's an element of that. And of course I grew up in Perth where the books are written or situated. And so it's been a little bit of a love letter to my 20s, I suppose, and the city that I knew then. But I live in Brisbane now, and so book 3 is set in Brisbane. And that was a lot of fun bringing her over here. But interesting, I think a lot of the readers are very keen for it to go back to Perth because, that's her home. And so they want to see her back there. But yeah. I don't think I can say any more without incriminating myself.
Not a problem. Thank you for that answer. So book 4 is written. What are you working on right now?
I am doing a PhD, and it's a creative writing PhD. So I'm writing a science fiction feminist novel, which is a time travel novel.
Oh, fun.
So I'm back in the speculative realm, well and truly. It's probably the most ambitious book I've written because it begins in the far future, and then the main character travels back to France in the 1400s. So to Joan of Arc. So that's been huge fun researching that. I'm also, because I do write for teens as well, I'm writing a teen novel about 3 kids who are trying to get recruited on athletic scholarships to the US. And that, again, is kind of well in my experience area because it's kind of what my experience with my son who's over there now. So having a lot of really enjoying writing both those novels at the moment, and I'm plotting the 5th Tara Sharp novel as well.
Okay. And you write your science fiction novels, that's a different name, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tara Sharp is written under the name Marianne Delacourt, which is kind of a play on my maiden name, which I write under most of my other work is Marianne de Pierre. But I'm married. My married name is de Courtenay, so Delacourt sort of came out of that.
Okay.
There's lots of dukes.
Yes.
So I have lots more questions for you, but we do need to take a quick break. So when we come back, we'll be talking more about your writing styles, about where you like to write, how you like to write, maybe some of your favorite authors or genres. So stay tuned, and we will be right back with author Marianne Delacourt.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Marianne Delacourt about her series, her Tara Sharp series, as well as some of the other things she's been working on. And now that we're back, I want to ask her some more things about her, like I said before the break, her writing style, her favorite authors, those sorts of things. So let's get back to it. Again, Marianne, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Do you have, when you write, do you have a certain place you like to write? Do you have a certain way you like to write? Do you keep a really strict schedule? How does that look for you?
Yeah, I think, I started writing when I had young children, so I had to develop a routine of some sort. Otherwise, I didn't have a lot of available time. So I have, over the years, developed a pattern where I like to write in the morning. I start writing anywhere from 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning and go through till lunchtime. And then I find I'm tired. It's hard to write anything fresh then. So either I will be editing in the afternoon or I'll be doing other associated work. I try and do that 5 days a week. If I'm on deadline, sometimes I'll be doing it more. But that's really my routine. I wake up in the morning. I don't know if other writers experience this, but I often wake up just as, you're surfacing and you're not actually fully awake. And all the plot problems and things that I've been having the day before suddenly jump into my mind, and I have this real moment of clarity before I properly wake up. And it's just an amazing thing. It's like the subconscious has been working on it all night. And, I get up and get to start writing quickly, and before I lose it all, before I forget what I think I've thought. It's quite, I've learned a lot over the years to trust that my mind will work out any issues I have if I just let it.
That's great.
It's really, it's quite an interesting thing. What I do find now, though, as I'm an older writer, is that I used to be able to hold all the details of a 4-book series in my head, and now I find that I have to write a lot more things down. I don't have the memory. My memory just seems to be so overly full all the time.
Well, you've got a lot to keep track of. Do you read a lot? Do you have favorite authors and genres?
Yeah, look, I obviously have been reading all my life. I tend not to, at the moment, I go through periods where my reading tastes change a lot. Like I find at the moment I enjoy crime or even romance at the moment, whereas a few years ago all I read was science fiction space opera, and then there was a period where all I read were historical novels. But at the moment, I'm Tana French, who is a British crime writer. It's one of my favourites. Mm-hmm. I like a lot of Spartan Noir writers, Val McDermid, Stuart McBride. And I'm just reading some comic crime at the moment too. So, it changes all the time. I'm also, because I'm doing my PhD, reading an awful lot of non-fiction. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it's about Joan of Arc. I've got thousands of books about Joan of Arc.
Oh, wow.
And also there's Yolande of Aragon and Christine de Pizan, who are two characters that period that I'm researching as well. So I've got a lot of books around them.
Okay. That sounds really interesting. I noticed in your biography that it says you're the co-founder of Vision Writers Group and Writers on the Rise. Do you want to speak about those at all?
Yeah, look, my youngest son, I have 3 sons. My youngest son was about 3 or 4 years old. I was really desperate to write, and I was living on an island off Brisbane, and the Queensland Writers Centre advertised they were trying to get a speculative fiction writers group together. So I went over, made the big trek. It was like, took me 2 hours to get there or something. And on that day, I met another writer, and she and I seemed to be as motivated as each other. And from that day, we formed the Vision Writers Group, which is, I'm really proud to say, has been going about 20 years now. But after a period of time with Vision, we used to meet once a month. We found that we were all writing, big novels, and that format didn't really give us the opportunity to get our novels, to get feedback on our novels. So from that sprung a second group, which was Writers on the Rise, and that was actually a group of writers from around Australia, and we used to get together. There was about 7 of us. We'd get together once a year, and before we'd get together, we'd each have to read 6 other novels. So it was quite a time commitment, but I have to say it was probably the best thing that I ever did in terms of improving my own craft, and lifelong friendships as well. So these days we don't meet as often. Most of us are on publishing schedules that don't allow us to kind of get to meet in a timely fashion. But really, honestly, if anybody's starting out in writing, I really encourage, whether it's just one person that you have as a critique partner or a group, it was probably the best learning experience of my life.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like people to know about you or your books or Tara or the series, anything at all?
Well, I guess I'd like to say, if you're at all interested in anything I've said today, my website's www.mariannedepierre.com, and 12th Planet Press are the ones who are publishing the Tara Sharp series. So go check out their website, because they publish a lot of great science fiction or speculative fiction with a feminist slant. They have some really top quality stuff there. But I'd just like you to welcome anybody to come and check stuff out. You can also email me through my website if you have any questions, and that's probably about it, I guess. Okay,
do you have social media or anything that people can follow?
I'm at mdepierre on Twitter. You can follow me, Marianne Depierre, on Facebook, and there's a fan page and my personal page. I don't mind. You can follow me on either of those. If you go to my website, you'll see I'm on Instagram, and I enjoy social media, so you'll find me out there a few places. Got a YouTube channel and a few other things, and all the links to all of those are on my website. But come and check out some Aussie fiction.
Yes, as I was saying before we started, I learned a few new words that I didn't know. I knew a lot of the words from reading. I read a lot of British fiction, and some of the words crossed over, but some of them didn't. So I did spend some time on Google, but it was fun. I loved learning new. I don't know if it's necessarily slang, but new ways of saying things.
Yeah, some of it probably is slang. I'll have to. I should put a key, shouldn't I? I should put a key.
A glossary in the back.
That's one of the nice things about reading something written from another culture is, and of course, in Australia we grow up on American television, and so the way you guys speak is incredibly familiar to us, and we tend to forget that it's not necessarily the other way around.
Which actually reminds me, there is a character in Too Sharp who is from LA. He's a rapper.
Yes.
And did you do anything special to write him, or did he just kind of come from your experience of American television, or?
Well, I have visited the US a few times now, and I know a few people in the music industry, and so while he's a completely fictional character, right. it wasn't drawn solely from my imagination. It was based around people that I've met, I guess. So
okay.
Yeah, and with a little bit because it's a funny novel, it's kind of a little bit more extreme than you would find in real life, I guess. So.
Right, a little bit over the top, which just makes it more fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of aspects of the novel that